Good evening, my friends. I can now confirm to you that yes, quite like your ability to focus on a task for longer than 5 minutes, it is indeed 100% over. Because iilluminaughtii is a YouTube commentator that for the last 2 years has faced non-stop controversy due to a multitude of actions that I have covered extensively on this YouTube channel. And the main topic of conversation surrounding iilluminaughtii or Blair for the last year has been specifically to do with a lawsuit that she's been engaging in facing multiple other content creators that she used to be friends with. Which again, I have absolutely covered extensively. This has been one of the most speculated lawsuits I think a YouTuber has ever been involved in. It pretty much has been at the forefront of public opinion for the last year straight, and just in general, every single time a document comes out to do with this whole lawsuit with iilluminaughtii, it just pretty much makes the public opinion of iilluminaughtii get worse and worse and worse. And it got to a point of where a lot of people out there were just like, well, it can't actually get any worse, can it? But no, every single time it got worse. And it really did just feel that with every single update to this lawsuit, it was just progressively getting more and more and more explosive. And with that, I think a lot of people out there were inevitably thinking that there was going to be a massive explosive conclusion to this lawsuit, given a lot of the explosive things that have already come out to do with it. Well, as I said earlier, that's not the case because this thing is now over, as the main defendant in the case, Oz Media, recently made a statement claiming that the lawsuit is officially over. And when this first came out at the beginning of January 2025, I think a lot of people out there were like, oh, I didn't expect that. I mean, great. And then there were a few weirdos who were weirdly angry because some people seem to believe that Oz Media and the other defendants in this lawsuit had this God-given thing that they had to do where they had to take on the corporate entity of iilluminaughtii and fight back and do nothing but just fight and fight and fight. And it's like, no, these are regular human beings, and if a lawsuit is over without a conclusive massive explosion, that's absolutely fine. But the reason that a very few amount of people out there were supposedly a little bit annoyed or angry with Oz because of this conclusion was due to the fact that the conclusion wasn't, well, an outright victory in terms of, well, legal terms for Oz Media and the other defendants involved. Pretty much what Oz speaks about in this video is that they have come to an agreed settlement. Him and Blair will no longer be speaking about this, and we will play the video soon, but just in general, Oz confirmed that the lawsuit is over, it is completely settled. But I also did just want to say that, well, with this conclusion, naturally, even the happy people were left with a few questions. Number one being, why did the lawsuit end so abruptly? And then what happens with iilluminaughtii now? And should we just forget everything and move on? And finally, is this the ending of this entire saga? And basically what I want to do today is explore these questions, go through a little bit of a retrospective to do with this entire saga and situation concluding itself, but I also want to speak about where this leaves us with iilluminaughtii in 2025. And to do this, what I want to do is take a look at the final piece of documentation that is publicly available right now from the previous lawsuit between Oz Media and iilluminaughtii, because I have gone through this previously in my last video, but there were a few things here and there that I missed out that I now want to go back and look at because I think it really does reflect where iilluminaughtii is at in 2025 and why this lawsuit came to an end. But also there was another little bit of drama that I wanted to speak about that has just kind of shot up out of nowhere recently. Whilst making this retrospective video, the person that has been pretty much updating all of us on this lawsuit, Mad Catster, came out with a video where he spoke about new allegations that recently came out in this case. And given that I'm doing a retrospective about all of this, there is a few things that I wanted to clear up here later in this video, but I also want to then take Mad Catster's legal analysis of the document that we're going to go through and apply it to some parts of this video. Pretty much, this is just a big retrospective. Given that we've covered this entire thing since the very beginning, I thought it would be very appropriate to, well, cover this thing's ending. But before we do that, I just want to let you know that next month I may be a little bit inactive because yes, I'm actually going on holiday. You see, I'm actually doing a big trip to Japan and hopefully it's going to be great. But when I say hopefully, I know that when it comes to big trips and traveling to other continents, it's naturally going to be a very, very stressful process because because, you've got to pack so many things, you've got to get the right itinerary, and just in general, you've got to make sure that everything is right and in place. And, my job obviously is very remote. I manage my YouTube channel via this lovely device right here, where I can, interact with comments, upload videos, change thumbnails and stuff like that. And this device is going to be very important when I go to Japan. And that's where I want to introduce today's sponsor, Saily, which is an affordable eSIM service that offers data plans in over 190 countries. And Saily just in general makes your life a lot easier. As I said, when I go to Japan, it's going to be a very stressful time actually getting there, and I've got to get my itinerary in place. And a big issue is involving my phone is I need to have data when I'm abroad. And you know what it is? You go into an airport, you see all those SIM card related packages available, Wi-Fi packages, and it's very confusing, it's very stressful. You've got to set it up in the airport when you've landed there, and it's also very expensive. Well, Saily just throws all of that out and makes it so much more simple. All you've got to do is download the Saily app on your Android or iPhone device, select one of the plans for the country that you'll be visiting, click install, and well, it's done. It's quick, it's easy, it makes your life a lot less stressful, and more importantly, it's much, much cheaper. And even if you do somehow stumble upon any issues whatsoever, Saily offers you 24/7 support, which is obviously great, but then it gets even better. Because right now, you can get an exclusive 15% discount on Saily data plans by downloading Saily and using code inabber at checkout, or just go to saily.com/inabber to make it easier. I know that I'll be using Saily when I go on a holiday because it will make my life so much easier, and also it will save me money, but also Saily just in general is a great product and service. So yes, a big thank you to Saily for sponsoring this video, and with that, let's get back into things. Now, where I want to start off is of course with the Oz Media video that I mentioned earlier, where yes, he confirms that pretty much this whole thing is over, and he has agreed a settlement with Blair.
Blair and I have agreed to settle this matter confidentially through mediation. The lawsuit has been dismissed against all parties without any admission of fault by any party. As a part of the non-disclosure agreement, it should be known that Blair will not be sharing her side of the story behind this dispute, nor will I. No one should contact either of us further about this case or ask us to comment on it, or each other. As I have stated previously, anyone following me should never make threatening remarks to anyone involved in this case in a public or private forum.
So yes, the lawsuit is officially over, and I spoke about this on my second channel very briefly, and now I want to speak about it on my main channel, but honestly, my whole opinion on this is just, I think this is a very good thing. As I said earlier, a lot of people out there were mad about this. People were stating that Oz has some, well, I say a lot of people, a few people were mad about this. Some people were stating that Oz basically needs to do more in fighting against Blair because it's for the YouTube community. And it's like, guys, this isn't an Avengers film. This is a real life human being that has had their life absolutely turned upside down for the last 2 to 3 years because of this individual Blair. And I feel like Oz has, well, I know that Oz has the full right to agree this settlement. Now, one Reddit post in particular that I saw in this whole debacle surrounding this video was somebody not suggesting that Oz was being a pushover, but they were talking about a conversation that they had with somebody about the topic of Oz possibly being a pushover here. It states, I had a discussion with a Discord server of small commentary YouTubers, not going to say who, about the final lawsuit update, and some people rather are disappointed in Oz, believing he's being a pushover the entire time, and basically breaking the promise of exposing Blair of his damning allegations, but he just wanted this drama to be over. I can understand not liking the outcome, but on the other hand, it seems Oz just not wanted to deal with his abuser anymore. What do you guys think? Now, I feel like there is a genuine issue when it comes to these topics of where people seem to forget that this whole thing involves real life human beings. This isn't just a thing of, oh, this is the latest drama of the week. Like, no, this is somebody dealing with someone that they've spoken about who has been absolutely terrible to them, and they're now having to deal with them on a legal basis. I imagine this situation has been absolutely traumatizing for Oz, Wonderstruck, Felix the Kit Kat, and everyone else that Blair has affected. And I feel like at any opportunity that they could, they would have settled this case. They didn't want want this lawsuit. They didn't want this legal battle. They made their YouTube videos, and Blair was the person who was trying to sue Oz into silence. I know a few people out there do kind of see YouTube as a bit of a Game of Thrones thing, and I can kind of understand it, that yes, you have this faction of influencers, you have this faction of influencers, they're going to go to war with each other, and then you have the kings at the top, but it's like, no, these are real human beings, and Oz has been financially impacted by this entire thing so unbelievably much, and I imagine mentally this has taken such an unbelievable toll on him. But also, a more important thing to take from Oz's video is Oz didn't lose this case. This case has been going on for a very, very long time now. I even have a 3-hour video just going over a section of the lawsuit, and then more videos on top of thousands of different updates. And just in general, over the last 2 years, the online space has consumed a large amount of content that is negatively driven towards Illuminaughtii. So many people have seen what this lawsuit entails. So many people have seen the disgusting details that have been described by people like Oz and by people like Wonderstruck, with Illuminaughtii turning up in the dead of the night and taking Wonderstruck's car, with Illuminaughtii trying to make Oz Media homeless, with Illuminaughtii sending out cease and desist to everyone that dares to speak up against her. There are so many examples that have come out from this case which only make the perception of Illuminaughtii so much unbelievably worse. At the end of the day, this case did not need a conclusion. We have already made up our minds. There are videos out there with millions of views just outright clowning on Blair, saying how terrible she is. Realistically, the general public and court of public opinion did not need a jury or a judge to tell them what their opinion on Illuminaughtii is. The general public seemingly made their mind up 2 years ago when Blair absolutely self-destructed at the very beginning of this drama with Legal Eagle. Ultimately, it would have been nice for there to be a conclusion and for, in the legal guise of everything, Oz to get his victory. That would have been lovely, but, that's not the reality of the world. The legal system is a very corrupt thing. I'm not suggesting any corruption, I should just say, but ultimately, I keep on saying ultimately, but ultimately, if you have a lot of money, you can long out these cases for as long as you want, and just in general, you can make someone suffer even if, in my opinion, you don't have a valid case or opinion. So with Oz getting the opportunity to settle, I absolutely cannot blame him, because at the end of the day, in the eyes of the public opinion, Oz absolutely already has won this situation. And I am generally a little bit confused with some people stating, oh, I was promised that there would be this big expose on Illuminaughtii, and it's like, where have you been for the last 2 years? If you search Illuminaughtii on YouTube now, it isn't Illuminaughtii videos that appear, it is Illuminaughtii expose after expose after expose, and this is one of the most spoken about topics on YouTube in the last couple of years. Illuminaughtii has been more than exposed. Her career at this point is absolutely finished. Blair is still losing subscribers to this day, and as you can see, it currently says that 0% in growth is green, meaning that, yes, supposedly this is meant to be a positive sign on Blair's channel, 0% growth. And there are a lot of factors to that, but ultimately, I've got to stop saying ultimately, But ultimately, this is a resulting factor of Blair's self-destruction, which led to this lawsuit that she started, which has been perceived as a silencing tactic and as a way to financially punish individuals that she does not like and individuals that have spoken up against her. Illuminaughtii is absolutely the reason her reputation is in the mud, and just in general, the existence of this lawsuit is an outright victory for Oz Media and his friends. And if you want me to go even further to prove that, I mean, I've got all day. I'll do it. A few years ago, Blair was getting millions upon millions of views, but then fast forward to 2025, and she has not uploaded for over a year, and her previous videos weren't even cracking 10% of the views that her older videos have. In my opinion, Oz selling is just Oz basically stating, hey, I mean, I don't need to do anything else anymore. The entire public agrees with me. Realistically, what does a judge saying, yes, I also agree with you, really do because everyone believes him. He's fine. He's got the financial and moral support of everybody. And if he's now being offered a chance to keep that support and also, not be ruined financially even further by this lawsuit, then well, I can't blame the guy for taking it. Even a commenter says, she seriously pulled an okay, you win, but don't tell anyone, lol. Another user says, so basically her lawyers took a look at the counterclaim and told Blair she basically has no outs, and the fact you were even attempting to offer her one despite all the evidence against her makes you a literal saint. So it was take your offer or face the music. I call that a W. Which is absolutely true. This is undoubtedly a massive win for Oz, Wonderstruck, and everyone else affected by Blair. And given what the commenter says here, it actually moves us into the question of, well, despite this being a victory, why did Blair just succumb to the pressure and say, you know what? Let's settle. Because yeah, supposedly this is a multi-millionaire who allegedly runs crypto farms and is just in general really super duper rich. So why would she give up in this case? Well, I actually think there are two main reasons for this. Reason number one being, Blair, I don't think she's rich anymore. In fact, I'd go as far to say as Blair, in my humble YouTubering opinion, is probably a little bit broke. And I've come to that understanding based on Oz's legal fees that he was posting at one point monthly, which pretty much displayed that Oz was accumulating around $7,000 to $8,000 in debt per month due to his legal fees that of course were being paid off by the financial support of his supporters. And yeah, I imagine that financial support absolutely really did help Oz. It doesn't take away from the fact that his finances are also probably crippled because of this lawsuit, but at the end of the day, he was receiving a lot of helpful support. But Blair, well, Blair absolutely was not. And then consider the fact that, well, her YouTube channel is dead, and then even consider the fact that her side businesses, like her candle business, is no longer in operation, probably because it was making no money. Then I think we can come to the very obvious conclusion that Blair either has no money or is running out of money, and probably thought to herself, or at least was told by her lawyers, Blair, you can't afford us in X amount of time. We can't keep fighting this battle for you if you can't pay for us. And just in general, I think Blair saw that and thought to herself, you know what? I've got to settle here because I can't represent myself in court because, well, I doubt she has that much understanding of the legal system. So yeah, I think she just thought, well, I've got to come to a settlement. And that only is backed even further by the second reason, which was mentioned in the comment earlier, of I think Oz Media's counterclaim to sue Blair absolutely scared her. Now, this is all to do with the legal documents that we went through in my previous update to this iilluminaughtii situation, where pretty much Oz filed a counterclaim against iilluminaughtie's lawsuit, stating a lot of very serious allegations against Blair. And pretty much my conclusive opinion on that legal document was that, well, I feel like Blair is being backed into a corner and probably is going to be forced to either back down, settle, or just in general not engage further in this lawsuit, because there were a lot of details in that document which alluded to a lot of very serious things which could have absolutely impacted Blair on the long term. For example, there were references to coercion, references to alleged embezzlement, and just in general, it could have made this whole thing go from a civil case to a very, very serious legal case where Blair would have to spend even more money backing her case, even more money to pretty much represent herself in court, but also her finances would have to be investigated, which could lead to even more terrible scenarios for Blair, where she could have possibly paid very high amounts in fines or even potentially faced some level of jail time. And yeah, in short, before we go even further in depth on that, I want to say that, well, I think that what the YouTube commentator was saying before was absolutely right. I think Blair's lawyers realized that Oz's lawyers had done a very good job and they had pretty much put Blair into a corner of where she now has financial troubles, but also is facing the possibility that this lawsuit goes on for far, far longer. And with that, just in general, I think that led to iilluminaughtii thinking, you know what? I've got to settle, I've got to get out of this. And she absolutely had no victory here whatsoever. But another thing to note is that this legal document that I keep on referencing has actually recently transpired into the little bit of drama that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, where Madcatster made a video recently titled "Shocking New Illuminaughtii Allegations Revealed 5 days ago." But actually, the individuals out there that state nothing ever happens, they're going to be very happy with themselves, because yes, nothing actually happened. This video here is a bit of a confusing one, I will say. Now, Madcatster is a lawyer that makes a lot of videos about legal situations that happen in the social space, and just in general, Madcatster has covered this situation from the very beginning, and in my opinion, he has done an absolutely very good job. But the problem is, in this video, which is stated about new allegations to do with Illuminaughtii, he is covering a court document that comes from October 2024, which, given the fact that, well, Blair and Oz have settled this case, it is a little bit confusing, because it does kind of present it that this lawsuit is still ongoing to this day. Madcatster doesn't actually clarify in the video that the lawsuit is now indeed settled, which obviously can be a little bit problematic to a few people out there. I've seen a few people getting angry about this video, stating this is just bringing up things for no reason, and I can understand that. I do personally believe Madcatster just went through this document and stated that yes, the whole thing is settled, but I want to speak about this for some relevant reasons, kind of like what we're going to do and have done in this video so far. I think just in general this would have been fine, but I think this is more of like a confusion thing here, and I think the reality of what has happened here is Madcatster has had a lot of videos that he's been working on. There are a lot of legal situations ongoing on YouTube right now, and I feel like this video just kept on getting pushed back and back and back until it eventually got released. And unfortunately, I feel like Madcatster didn't realize that the whole thing had been closed and settled, and that led to this unfortunate little bit of drama. I don't personally think that this is the worst thing in the world. I don't personally think that this is this massive drama which is going to engulf into another lawsuit, but I do just want to set the record straight and clarify that this lawsuit is over. It has settled, and Blair and Oz are going to go into their own directions wherever they want to go with their careers and life, and this lawsuit is never going to have, well, hopefully is never going to have another update. And I did just want to clarify that for the sake of pretty much everyone in this situation, that yes, again, the lawsuit is settled, it is over, and that is that. And I do think that Madcatster overall has done a very, very good job of covering this situation, and I think just in general this is just a bit of accidental confusion, which, yeah, I can understand why some people would be frustrated, but overall I think with a little bit of clarification this could have been all avoided, and I did just want to say as I said earlier, it's over. But funnily enough, I actually do want to use this video that Madcatster recently uploaded, and the reason that I want to use it is because Madcatster is a lawyer, and he has better legal understanding than I personally do. And when I first originally went through this document, there were a lot of things that I left out, mainly due to the fact that I didn't really have the legal understanding of what was being spoken about in that document. And what I want to now do is go back and take a look at that document to come to a more further in-depth understanding of why Illuminaughtii settled. Because yes, there are a lot of things that Madcatster actually speaks about in his recent videos that do give a very clear indication of why Blair could no longer proceed with this lawsuit. I understand, in short, you know, like, the main details, but now, if you're interested, I want to go further in depth into this lawsuit and back into this document, because there are some things in here which, in my opinion, indicate why she settled, but also it leads us into the conversation of, can Illuminaughtii ever come back to YouTube? Now, based on some of the things we're about to get into, I don't really think she can. So yeah, the document opens by stating that this is a counterclaim from Oz Media versus Illuminaughtii and the people that represent her, and Oz was also demanding a jury trial. Which, as I said in my last video, is a very significant thing, because in my opinion, a jury is much easier to gain sympathy and empathy from, because naturally with a judge, you know, they're a little bit more stoic, they're a little bit more, I guess, what's the word, like legal-headed. Everything in their eyes is through the law. Where, you know, a jury, they're just the common people, you know. They'll understand that, oh, that is a very terrible thing, even if it isn't technically an illegal thing or something like that, and why it led Oz down certain paths or certain situations. And I think a jury would have been detrimental for Illuminaughtii in this situation, because anyone with a heart and soul can see this situation from a mile off and realize this is a rich multimillionaire who has been abusing her power for over 2 years straight. And yeah, just in general, this is another contributing factor to why I think Illuminaughtii decided to settle, because if she had to face a jury, I'm sure it wouldn't have gone down well. But then let's get into the factual allegations, where it states that the claim against Oz by Blair for defamation in this action is alleged to have arisen from Oz's YouTube video in 2023 called Let's Talk, an update on the Illuminaughtii drama, in which Oz explains his understanding that Blair coerced Oz into signing promissory notes and deeds of trust secured against Oz's house for previous financial transactions and assistance Blair gave to Oz while Blair was, to Oz's understanding, using the assets of her various business entities for her personal use without a legitimate business purpose. Now, in hindsight, given that this lawsuit is officially settled, I feel like this is most likely the main reason that Blair and her lawyers got scared off from this counterclaim, because it starts to speak about a lot of things that are very, very sensitive. It starts to go into things that could be considered alleged embezzlement, in my humble personal opinion. I should just say that this lawsuit is over, and this is absolutely nothing to do with Oz's opinion. This is all my opinion. But what's being stated here, fellas, is obviously a little bit sus, is a little bit weird to read, and it very much reads off to me personally like some financial shenanigans has gone on behind the scenes, where the big rich multimillionaire Illuminaughtii has, you know, pressured people that aren't multimillionaires into getting into certain financial shenanigans. And I feel like Illuminaughtii probably did not want this conversation to go even further, because naturally, when you get into this document, you start to read conversations surrounding coercion and embezzlement, and with these types of conversations and with this counterclaim, it could possibly lead into a financial investigation into, well, Blair's finances, which could then lead into some territories where Blair isn't exactly the most comfortable of people. And it only continues on line 20, where it states, at the time Mr. Oz signed the instruments of debt, he understood that unless he signed various debt instruments to 9 Point holders and Blair personally, Blair could get into legal trouble for misuse of company assets, or to his understanding, liable for embezzlement. Blair would explain her need for the documentation was because she would be in trouble legally if her companies couldn't account for where those funds were spent or for what business purpose. And yes, this just starts to go more and more in depth into what I was just saying. If this turns into a legal case surrounding embezzlement, Blair would no doubt have to hand over her financial documents to do with her multiple companies and to do with her personal assets. And that could get into some territories where I'm not stating that Oz has said these things, but in my opinion, based on my analysis, there could be some legal things that Blair does not want people to see. In particular, those people being the American government. Because in the USA, you can face up to 10 years in prison for embezzlement, and in some cases, even 20 years, with a maximum fine of $25,000. And I'm not saying that Blair has definitely committed embezzlement, but what I am saying is Blair, no doubt whatever she has done in the past, whether legal or illegal, I don't think that she would want to hand over any financial documents to the government. Because at the end of the day, even if you have done everything by the book, these people will try and find anything that you have possibly done wrong, whether intentionally or accidentally. And even if you haven't done anything wrong, this whole process would have taken a very long time and longed out this lawsuit even more, which, as we've seen, I personally don't think Blair could financially afford. And the document then goes on to say, despite signing the documents purporting to evidence debt which were secured by the deeds of trust on his house, Mr. Oz was never provided with any clear itemization of the alleged debts claimed by Miss Blair and 9 Point Holdings. Mr. Oz was rather coerced and manipulated by Blair into signing these documents. Blair drove Mr. Oz to her attorney's office on December 22nd, 2022, after telling him his signature on the documents would mend their relationship and that Blair would have to have them signed by the end of the year. The statement by Oz in his Let's Talk video is his understanding of why he signed documents that he signed and explaining that he didn't know the documents gave Blair and 9 Point Holdings the power to foreclose his home. And this brings us back to the question that I previously mentioned of, could Blair ever make a comeback in the YouTube space? Because honestly, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say I don't think that she could, because just looking at what is written there and then remembering some of the things that have come out from this lawsuit, you have to truly think about them for a second. This is a content creator that for years based their content around morality and telling people that they're in the wrong on situations. And they were trying to put themselves in a position of power where they could foreclose somebody's home. This is someone that turned up at the dead of night to take a car away from them. This is someone that allegedly, supposedly, did not return the belongings of said individual that I just mentioned. This is an individual that has tried to sue multiple people into silence. At every single angle, Blair, just in general, in my opinion, has made herself out to be worse and worse and worse. And this document is just another reminder of that fact. And this is just something that I'm just so confused about. I've covered Blair a million times at this point, but honestly, I will never get over this. Blair, as I said, is a commentary YouTuber. This is someone that bases everything they do around morality. So I don't understand how she genuinely believed she would get away with any of this. Because just a reminder to everyone, Oz did not start this situation. Blair started this. None of this needed to happen. Realistically, if Blair just said sorry to Legal Eagle way back in 2023, none of this needed to happen, but she just decided to keep on going despite knowing everything that she had done behind the scenes. To me, this is just one of the most confusing situations I have ever seen, and despite covering her time after time after time, I just don't understand what she thought she would get out of any of this. So no, I funnily enough don't think that Blair can ever make a return to YouTube, and as we go further into this document, you're probably only really going to agree with me on that, because the next section says on line 25, Oz is informed and believes that many of the alleged debts included by Blair in the documents evidencing debt appear to be for Blair's personal expenses and/or expensive that occurred during their short romantic relationship at Blair's urging and insistence that Oz had understood at the time they were to be shared. Instead of sharing the expenses, Blair used company funds in many instances and then added the amount to an undisclosed ledger of debt she had claimed Oz owed her back to her and/or her companies in a manner that would appear to make any of the expenditures from her corporation to be legitimate business expenses or loans to Oz. Later, however, Blair would include the $40,000 payment in an unwritten ledger of debt she claimed Oz owed her and her companies, and she used undue influence and pressure to coerce Oz into signing loan documents that included the $40,000 payment along with numerous amounts which were never itemized or identified. And on line 25, it then says, upon information and belief, Blair would then later inflate the $40,000 payment to $49,999 without any basis and include the amounts in an unwritten ledger of debt. Now, the phrase unwritten ledger of debt is something that has come up multiple times during this whole document, and I am really confused to what this actually means, and I actually went to Madcaster's video to see if he had any understanding of what an unwritten ledger of debt could possibly be, but even he, the lawyer, is confused about what this actually is.
Blair would later inflate the $40,000 payment to $49,999 without any basis and include the amounts in the unwritten ledger of debt. What the hell is an unwritten ledger of debt? Something you're just tallying in your head? That's ridiculous.
So if the lawyer doesn't have an understanding of what an unwritten ledger of debt possibly is, then what actually is it? Well, I actually went and Googled it, and even the annoying AI-generated answer that Google now provides did not come up. Which to me personally indicates that there isn't really an answer to what an unwritten ledger of debt actually is, because this whole thing is just absolutely bogus, and it's just Blair once again using her financial status to control and manipulate people that she does not like. And I think in this document, Oz's lawyers are deliberately pushing on this unwritten ledger of debt situation because they know themselves that yes, this is a very bogus thing that is just being said to kind of hide away from supposed alleged shady business tactics going on behind the scenes. To me personally, based on my analysis on this legal document and other previous legal documents that Blair has been involved in, it just kind of feels that Blair has, well, how do I say this? Moved a lot of funds around. She has put money into a lot of places, which does look a little bit shady, and she has used this unwritten ledger of debt thing as a way to kind of paper over that and hope that there are no future legal headaches that come from it. And I feel like with Oz's lawyers putting pressure on this topic, Blair knows that this could lead to a lot of headaches, which she undoubtedly cannot afford financially and probably at this point mentally, because I imagine this is, I understand she started this thing, but I imagine this has taken a massive toll on Blair, and I don't think even she wanted it to go to that point. And that's only really backed further on line 23, where it states Oz disputes the amounts of such claimed indebtedness to Blair and 9 Point Holdings and demands an equitable accounting of the amounts of such claims of indebtedness. So basically what Oz's lawyers were requesting here was that Blair submits all her financial records so they have an equitable accounting put onto them, which basically means that these accounts are going to be looked at, analyzed, so they can come to understanding of what is actually owed in this situation. And basically, I think why they tried to do this was because, well, they knew that Blair would not want to submit her financial records to the government or to this court. Because obviously, I think there have been maybe not illegal things, but some things that could be perceived to be shady going on behind the scenes, in my humble opinion. And again, it just takes us back to why Blair settled this lawsuit, because yes, no one really wants to have to deal with that, especially the YouTuber who at this point basically has no income as far as I know. Her supposed crypto farms, I imagine, maybe they're still going, maybe, but her YouTube revenue, her candle business, everything that she had before really is not making the money that it was once making. So yeah, I don't think she wanted to deal with this. But even on top of that, the moralistic implications of everything that came from this lawsuit, as you go further into these documents, yes, you know, this whole thing has been settled, but it really does just tell a story of who Blair actually is. For example, on line 35, it states that Mr. Oz was actively engaged as a YouTube content creator and was earning X amount of money monthly when he and Blair began their romantic relationship. He would later become entangled in Blair's businesses and personal life due to the detriment of his own financial well-being, all as a consequence of Blair's urging, manipulation, coercion, deceit, and overbearing narcissism, which only foreshadowed her toxic personal and professional identity that would only later become evident. Now again, yes, this whole lawsuit has been settled and these things are just allegations, but at the end of the day, this just represents again the fact that I personally believe that Oz undoubtedly got the win in this situation, because people are going to look at this and they're going to believe this. And not because of what Oz has said, but because of Blair's own actions. Blair at every opportunity has contradicted herself, been exposed for lying, and been exposed for manipulating. So when we see something like this, obviously the general public are only going to believe it. And with this court case settled, the general public are now the only people that can give their opinion on this situation. It ultimately, I need to stop saying that word, but it ultimately has been left for all of us to decide and give our opinion on. The courts aren't going to do it because it's been settled, and now it's just down to whatever everyone thinks. And well, I think that a lot of the things stated in this document, people are going to take and believe for the rest of time. Like in line 41, it states, upon information and belief, Blair would use funds from her LLC and corporation to ensnare Oz into a spiral of dependence for which she would later insist on Oz's coerced signatures upon instruments of debts. The coerced signature were in part designed to control and manipulate Oz, forcing him to bow to Blair's will, but also to paper over the misappropriation of assets of her LLC and /or corporation by Blair for embezzlement of funds from established business entities. I mean, realistically, on a moralistic but also legal perspective here, none of this is good. And yes, I will say it for a millionth time because of the amount of confusion going around right now. This thing is settled, but this document does still exist, and I'm going to read it and use it to understand why Blair backed off and settled, because obviously what we can see here is someone being pinned into a corner. When you go into line 42, it states, after Blair and Oz moved into the home that they had constructed, Blair began scheming to have a home designed and constructed in or about of May 2021. She had also insisted that Oz be involved financially in the project for the construction of a new multi-million-dollar home for the two of them to live in together. Blair entered into design and construction agreement with builders, paying a $75,000 deposit for the same in about of September 2021, and added 50% of the costs for such project to the unwritten ledger of debt she attributed to Oz. I mean, how is that even legal? I mean, realistically, I don't believe that this is something that is really legal. How are you spending money and then putting it into an already agreed ledger of debt and then stating, oh, you actually owe even more? To me, it's just this thing that she was using to control Oz, but also to possibly move funds around in a way that maybe, you know, in Minecraft could be considered not, well, too great. But it only continues because it says, including a $50,000 design fee and $20,000 deposit for the holding lane. Upon information and belief, the payments for this project came directly from the business entities without any appropriate financial accounting recognizing Blair's use of corporate LLC assets for her personal use. These and other transactions by Blair using her company's funds for personal use would later lead to Oz's understanding that he would need to sign documentation after the fact to make it appear that the business transactions were legitimate business expenses so that she would not appear to have embezzled funds for her business entities. I mean, just reading this, what again really confuses me after covering this time and time and time again is I am just lost at how Blair possibly thought that she was going to win this situation. I'll say it again and again, but just with everything that has come out, I am so unbelievably confused why she thought that she could press on ahead with this in any part of the situation and get any form of victory. I mean, to me personally, what I'm witnessing and what we've witnessed over the last 2 years has just been the YouTube equivalent of a kamikaze. She has just basically just been trying to take everyone down with her in a sort of, if I'm going down, you're all going down with me sort of thing. But realistically, that has failed tremendously, and there isn't really anything else that I want to go into involving this document, but all the things that we've gone through so far, in my opinion, do just represent why we have gotten to this conclusion and end point finally in this saga. Because yeah, I'd say Oz's lawyers had a master class in this document, but at the end of the day, they're just stating things that are very obvious and what we've really known for a very long time, and I feel like this being a counterclaim has just kind of scared Blair out of doing anything. And I should again just say, this is all just simply my opinion. I've not spoken to anyone else. I'm just, creating an opinion based on my analysis of these documents. And what these documents represent to me is just Blair is absolutely, fundamentally, to the very definition, cooked. And look, I love a good old YouTube cook, but one thing that I don't like to be is confused. Because yes, this all started off with those weird Legal Eagle call-out tweets that iilluminaughtii made. And then it led to cease and desists. Then it led to exposés. Then it led to us learning that she turned up in the dead of night to repossess a car. Then we learned that she tried to foreclose someone's house. Then we learned that just in general, at every single angle, Blair had been allegedly just trying to control and coerce everyone around her. And I'm confused. Why? Why did you think that you would win this? I've said that like 10 times, but to kind of conclude everything in this situation, because yes, we are at an ending, and despite all of the confusion ongoing right now, this thing is settled. But I will never have the settled fact in my mind of why she even tried in the first place. Why did she go to Legal Eagle, an actual lawyer, and try to state the things that she was stating? Why did she go to a lawyer and accuse him of plagiarism? It makes no sense. But why did she then start a lawsuit when there was just so much out there that would prove that she is in the wrong in every single situation? Now, I'm not a therapist. I'm not going to diagnose this person with narcissism, but there are definitely a lot of narcissistic traits that I get from iilluminaughtii. Some of the things that she has done to me represent an individual that absolutely thought that they were on top of the world and basically untouchable. And I think what this situation shows is that no one is untouchable. Realistically, all Blair needed to do at the very beginning of this situation, I mean, all she needed to do was just say nothing to Legal Eagle, but even after that, she could have just said sorry. But even then, she released this video and all hell broke loose. And even then, she still did not say sorry. And even after that, she still didn't say sorry. And even now, she hasn't said sorry. She's just silently settled. And Oz, in the court of public opinion, has taken the victory. And do I think that Blair can ever come back to social media? Well, honestly, maybe. Like, realistically, Onision is still on this platform. All of the terrible people are still on this platform. There's probably still room for Blair to come back to an audience of like 10,000 viewers every single week. I have seen worse people come back to this platform. I'm not saying that I think she should be deplatformed or anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised that in 2 years' time, Blair comes back and starts uploading videos, not addressing any of the situation because of a court agreement with Oz. But at the end of the day, everyone is gonna know. We all know what we know, and just in general, this situation from the very beginning has been an absolutely confusing mess, and I will never understand why iilluminaughtii or Blair decided to start it. But with that, my friends, yes, that is the ending, finally, to this saga. I know that I briefly spoke about this on my second channel, but I really thought that it would only be fitting to actually cover the ending of this situation, given I've covered every single angle of every part of this saga. Now, I maybe in the future am considering to actually make a big ass video just going through every single part of this situation. It would take me a very, very long time to do that. But given that I know pretty much everything about this situation, maybe it would be fitting to do that in a few months' time. Another 5-hour video, who knows? But yeah, with that, we're going to end everything here. I would love to know your opinions. Like, honestly, let me know why you think that Blair started this and persisted with it for so unbelievably long. And let me know why you think she finally decided to settle. But yes, that is the ending of the video. Please go to my podcast and subscribe to Over the Pond. The links are in the description. But more importantly, please like this video. Please subscribe. And yes, with that, I'm going to go. Peace out, everybody. Have a great week. Bye-bye.